Welcome to the Robin Graham Show, the podcast for purpose-driven women who want to achieve sustainable success without having to be on social media. Hey, beautiful friends, welcome back to another episode of the Robin Graham Show. Today, we are going to talk about some of the steps that you need to take to be able to create a marketing strategy that is truly going to work for you. We often look at marketing at the beginning of our businesses, and sometimes even when we've been in business for 3, 5, 10 years, and it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. What's going to work? What's not going to work? But what you really need to have is a baseline. And what you really need to have is complete knowledge and clarity around your customer as well as your competitors. And we call those customer analysis, competitor analysis, but don't get too overwhelmed by that, because today's guest is going to give us some great insights as to how we can do these things without going down the rabbit hole of comparison, but looking at these things so that we can have complete clarity around our message so that these people that we're trying to reach, trying to speak to get them to convert to paying clients will completely understand that we are their people. Rita Barry, welcome to the Robin Graham Show.
Great. Thank you. I'm grateful to be here.
I'm grateful to have you. So I would love for you to tell the listeners a little bit about how you got to this point in your journey.
Oh, well, I have a digital marketing agency that began in 2009, so it's 15 years old now. My goodness. And so I just started as a stay-at-home mom. I had left my career in social work and I was a little bored, to tell you the truth. And so I started doing web design and blogging and kind of like in the infancy of the Internet 2.0, doing all of those things. And it has a long sordid tale, but it grew into an agency with employees and lots of humans that we get to support in the world to, all of our clients are mostly coaches and course creators, and we just help them do bigger and better things, whatever that means to them.
I love it. And I've had the good fortune of seeing some of your work because you're working with one of my clients, and it's really quite remarkable the depth of just information that you have her or that she collected. And, when she's telling me these things,
It came out of her brain. It came out of her
I'm like,
brain. She knew it.
wow, this is amazing.
Yeah,
But you have the right you've guided on the right questions and these things. And I look at that and I think, wow, like this is truly the best way, because we cannot reach the people that we want to serve or that we have the gifts to be able to serve if we don't know them. So we have to have,
exactly.
that clarity. And how do we get that? So I'm excited to talk about all this today. So let's start with the customer analysis. Like how do we approach that so that we can get that voice of customer and know their pain points and their needs, wants, and desires? I mean, obviously, if we have a gift and we have an expertise, we think we know, right? But
Right.
how do we get that, the nitty-gritty from them, from the people?
Right. So I'm gonna like from a perspective that someone has clients to talk to, and if they don't, you can just apply this to people that are in the same kind of target market. But we always start with client research and different surveys for our clients. We're on behalf of their clients essentially. So we do a client survey, which is just like a written survey you can send out to people, which really asks things around, right? Like, what are you trying to improve? Like when you hired this person, why did you choose this person, which would be, yourself? Why did you choose us over somebody else? What would be a deal breaker that would have caused you to choose someone else over us? What other solutions have you used? Right? Because it might not always be coach A versus coach B that someone's deciding between. It can be coach A and nobody, or coach A and an app, right? Like there's a multitude of ways to solve problems. And in your customer research, you're really trying to find out the problems they're trying to solve, how they've solved them before, why they appreciated your solution more, like why they ultimately chose you, because there was a reason they didn't
Mhm.
choose coach B or the app or not doing anything at all, right? And really just trying to find out the kind of the last piece is what really has working with you or interacting with your programs, et cetera, what are they able to do now that they weren't before? Like, what is a new capability that they've developed? And so we take those surveys and we help the client administer them to their clients. We help the client, if there's any like super fan folk that are really excellent clients. We'll also get the client to do one-on-one interviews with people if they're comfortable. We'll facilitate interviews if the client doesn't have time or things like that. Because especially when you're talking with someone and they say something, you can dig in and like find more juicy information. So talking to people is amazing, right? But those are the two main avenues. If you have enough traffic, you can also do some website surveys around people that are still in like research mode that aren't really ready to buy yet, but I wouldn't imagine that people are kind of in that place where that would make sense. Most of the bang for your buck is sending out those surveys and seeing what people say, because it's incredibly illuminating. They'll also tell you who your competitors are, because what I found over the last 15 years is people often think their competitors are one person because they're kind of fixated on them, right? And they're like, oh no, this person, it's this person. And then when you survey 100 people who have actually paid the money, nobody even mentions that person, which is always fascinating. But it's why, like, this is qualitative data that you're gathering, right? And it's one of the things that's often overlooked because in kind of our data-centric society, right? Everyone's like numbers, numbers, numbers. But the human information you get back is usually the key to unlocking, like, why aren't people buying my products? Like, what is going, like, all of those hard business problems to solve are usually solved in that customer research phase. Especially if you're trying to solve a specific problem like that, then we're often like looking very specifically for that. But that's where we start pretty much every project with a client, unless they have recently done that themselves. But after all these years, I can tell you, I don't know that that's happened terribly often. Like most people don't. They're like, oh, it's been years since I sent out a survey. And oftentimes the questions are not so specific that they're incredibly illuminating and helpful, right? Like the questions that we're asking are incredibly specific because we do want to guide the conversation to make sure that the information we're gathering is incredibly helpful for the business and the messaging and product development and all that kind of stuff.
I love that. I actually have a list of questions that I send to my clients like midway working together so that I can get some of that information. You're making me think I need to be a little more specific on some of the questions, but that data is very helpful and it gives you great insight into how to create your messaging.
Exactly. And you can go in the same way that you go into like other kinds of spreadsheet data and you read everybody's responses to all the questions and you can actually theme them, which is what we do, so that you can go in and look, you're like, out of 100 people that, took this survey, 75% of them said this as, right, the problem they were trying to solve. Or 50% of them said X, right, is a new capability that they had since taking our program. So, and we're not talking about that at all, right? Like we've had data reflect back that because it was like a personal brand type business, that person was front and center in all of the marketing and all of the coaching and all of those sorts of things. And one of the biggest things that flagged in her survey was that it was her relatability. And it was interesting because she actually would downplay herself all the time, right? Like she would try to remove herself from the business and personal stories, like take all of that out, just because she felt really awkward and odd about it, kind of navel gazing. She's like, nobody wants to hear about this. But because she coached on a sensitive topic and she did not look like the stereotypical person who would experience that issue, it really provided a lot of peace and less shame to people that were experiencing it. So that we're getting her survey back and she's looking in black and white that the vast majority of people who purchase and sign up with you are doing so because of your relatability. It was like, okay, then all of a sudden you change your email marketing, you change your social media, right? Like it really informs so much. And it was more just how do we remove shame from this better? And how do I use my story to facilitate that, especially since that is often an easier way to talk about topics that are, so I call it throwing yourself under the bus. But if you are your own client, right, that's a really great way to help people kind of in. So that's just a really interesting example I found where, because she pushed against that she's like, oh no, I don't want to talk about myself. That's awful. And every single one of, there was just so much data supporting you need to talk about yourself.
Yeah. I love that. So, okay, you mentioned a phrase called, you said super fans.
Mm-hmm.
And So is there a way to calculate who your super fans are?
I think most people are going to like intuitively know. Like, and so super fans would be in this particular context, like super fan purchasers. So
Okay.
these ones will be a little bit easier because the one caveat about your survey, like if you have enough sales, you do want to send your surveys and interview people that are your perfect fit clients.
Hmm.
So you do
Hmm.
not want to send out a survey to try to, because essentially you're trying to mirror these people, right? Like you're trying to extract information, go find more of them. You don't want to find more of your least favorite folks. So if you do have those people that are your super fans that buy everything that you make, that sign up for all the things, who have the highest amount of like revenue, lifetime value into your business, those are the ones you want to go to first if you like them. Because I guess there have been occasions where people are like, this person spends a lot of money, but they're not my favorite, so maybe not them. But that's where kind of ideal customer comes into, like who are your perfect people. But yeah, so those are the ones that you want to get a hold of, because that's the information you want to use to market to find more of them. So just
Yeah.
do be a little cautious who you're going to, because in this particular instance of client research, all clients are not created equal as far
Hmm.
as like who you prefer working with and who gets the best value and outcomes from working with you.
Right, right. Okay. So then the other question I have for you is how do you get people to respond to surveys?
So you can do like some people, if they have huge audiences and don't have a lot of personal touch available within their time, they'll offer like anyone who answers gets like a certain thing, whether it's a low cost course that they have or some sort of whatever incentive would matter to your audience. That usually can make a difference as far as getting your survey percentage higher. If you have a smaller business with a lot of like one-on-one clients, usually that's not nearly as hard. When you're dealing with more of like the higher traffic type offers, right, where there's low problem maturity and people are having more transactional purchases with you, those can be the harder ones, and usually incentives can work well. I've seen people do Amazon cards, I've just all manners of things, but just something that would matter to them, and then you'll be amazed. People love to, and make it anonymous too. That's the other piece. If you're asking people to to tell you things, and depending on what your business is about, some of what they share might be really sensitive. So make it anonymous. If you're sending it out to large groups of people, obviously, if you're doing a one-on-one interview, that's not the case. And then oftentimes when I send out a survey, just have a little thing at the bottom that says, if you'd be open to, having an interview, leave your email, like an in-person, like a Zoom interview, leave an email. So you can kind of give people an out, because obviously some people don't mind if it's anonymous, but other people will share very differently if it is. So yeah, lots of little tricks. But if you send it
Yeah.
out, no one replies, then just try again with a different incentive, right? Like you just always have to keep going and
Yeah.
just keep
Yeah.
trying different things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the competitor analysis. And when we say
Hmm.
competitor, we're talking about healthy competition, the type of competition that is you have your best fit clients and people in your same space, your niche, your industry, they're going to have their best fit clients. So we're talking about competitive analysis, not competing against someone.
Exactly. They're profoundly different. And just like I mentioned, it's when you're doing the initial research. And so you have all these people that have paid you money, right? Hopefully. Um, and you're getting back their feedback on who, like other competitors, other people they've spent money with, other people that they've considered. You're going to see a whole wealth of people probably that you didn't even know were there. That has been, our experience with clients, but also competing solutions, right, that are completely out of category, right? That are like, I'm using a spreadsheet for that. And they're just worried about all the apps in the space, right? And people are just like using a Google Doc or something. But that's still a competitor, because you still have to kind of overcome those things. So the important thing to know, right, is that like if someone's spending money in the space and there's actually competitors, it is really a good thing. If you actually don't have any competitors, I would be incredibly concerned that you're not in a viable market selling a viable product. Right. And so that's the thing that everybody misses. They're like, oh my gosh, this is really uncomfortable. Everybody's like competing for the same people. And a little yes, a little no, right? We all have our preferences about how we purchase things. But that's like if there isn't a healthy like ecosystem of businesses and marketing in whatever niche you have, like seriously consider like, why is that? Is there like it's called a TAM, a total addressable market, but like if there isn't an addressable market to solve this problem, don't try to build your business there. Like that's actually awful, right? Like you
Yeah.
are going so uphill, right? Like it's true that there's people that create markets, but that's not what you want to be doing for your first business. If you have no business experience, like if you're trying to do this fairly easily, don't do that. So,
Yeah.
so yes, but if you've once you've identified who you think your competitors are, who your customers think your competitors are, right, then you're looking for things, right, like what is their position in the market, right? So basically, I just do up a spreadsheet, quick and dirty, list all the competitors at the top, on the side, just do what is their position in the market. And we're talking about, are they like low end, and not low end in a bad way? Because, right, like we're talking like Walmart, for example, right? Bottom of the market as far as like low end department store, but they serve like that's awesome. They need to be there, right? There's people that want to shop there. And so, is the competitor you're looking at a low cost alternative, right? Are they a high cost, mid range? What kind of products do they have? Are they selling things like digital products that are really transactional? Are they selling things that are incredibly bespoke, right? And really deep solutions to problems for really mature clients, right? Who have really mature problems, who require really complex solutions, right? Like that's something like what I do, where my competitor isn't someone who's selling a course on how to do reels, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're still in marketing, but the person who wants to buy a Reels course is not the person who has the level of problem maturity that wants an incredibly bespoke, high touch, expensive solution. Simply not the same person, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and that's important because some of the people that I work with as clients now used to be that person, right? And their problem has matured over time. So it's a good thing to keep that in mind too. So position in the market's really good. What is a core differentiator is another thing I like to look at with competition. So like look at their website, look at their social media, like what are they talking about, right? Do they have certain core messages that they've kind of planted their flag on around this is what I do? Like if it's social media people, right? It might be the Instagram person versus the Facebook person, or it might be if they're like funnel marketing people, like some people like, no, I teach just webinars, right? And no, I teach evergreen funnels, all of that kind of stuff. Do they have a unique perspective, right? Is it like a lawyer turned marketer? Is it a doctor turned coach? Is it like all of those sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things you're looking for? Um, like on their about page, you might see it, especially if it's another coach around like kind of what's their story, how did they get into it, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. Their past history. You're also going to looking for like website ranking factors. Might not be so much of an issue with like coaches and newer folks, but for bigger businesses, we're looking for like domain authority and things more like SEO ranking factors, to just see how established they are, what kind of traffic they get, where their traffic's coming from. Might not be so much of an issue, but it's still fun to go
Mm-hmm.
digging around if you're interested, and to see. We look at social signals, like what social profiles, how active they are, how many followers do people have, what kind of breadth do they have in their social media saturation, right? Some people are just Instagram. Some people are everything under the sun, right? And they have really
Mm-hmm.
advanced, complex marketing systems. So we're looking at all of that. And then the other thing that we like to look at is reviews and testimonials. And so some competitors, like there's some niche sites depending on what you do, right? Like I know if you're lawyers, doctors, different things like that, there's like certain sites just for that. And your particular industry might have a site like that. But there's always like the Trustpilot, there's the podcast reviews, there's the Google Your Business, depending if someone's brick and mortar, all those things. But basically harvest reviews for people. And one of the fun things you can do with ChatGPT around competitive differentiation and research is you can take reviews, especially I like to take the 5-star reviews from folks, from competitors, put them into the system and ask ChatGPT to come up like what are 5 themes or the most common themes from these reviews, and provide supporting quotations from the reviews so that you can see, and then you can actually use that. Love ChatGPT for research analysis stuff, and it can come out and say like this is out of all the reviews for this particular competitor, this is the common themes that people are mentioning as they're really like top of mind super things that they thought to mention in a review. So you can really see what are the other things that like are coming up for people? If you don't know, kind of if you're, or if you're in like a weird niche, because sometimes that happens, you can do that with Amazon book reviews, right? And go and look and see at books in your niche, kind of what people are talking about as the things they most enjoyed, things that were missing, things like that. So lots of review to see all of those things. So we basically do that for every single competitor to get a really nice view of the landscape. And then also, right, we know their products, we know their price points, we know all those things. And you just get this really great holistic view of what the landscape is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can purposefully choose where you want to exist in that landscape instead of it just being a mishmash happy accident, right? Because you can, when you have it mapped out like that with your competitors, you can see gaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe everything's super bespoke and nothing is really more of that transactional early beginner stage product, right? Or maybe it's the exact opposite, right? And then there's still like really great mid-range businesses too, where you're solving problems that are, you have a little bit of transactional offering, a little bit of bespoke offering, all of those things, but you can see it so much clearly when it's
Mm-hmm.
in a spreadsheet, black and white, and you're just like, what are the trends and patterns here? Where do I fit? Where do I feel like I do this better? Or I do this for somebody else, like a subgroup? Or
Mm-hmm.
how does my story and my core difference inform how I do what I do? And then you can just lean into that stuff really hard because it's also so helpful for your customers. Like when they come to your site and they're like, oh, this is what they do, right? This is their position in the market. And there's always these like subtle design clues, right? About all those sorts of things. And you just, that this one's for you versus the other one. So it's super important to do, depending on the size of the business. We do this anywhere from quarterly to once a year, just to make sure we know what's going on. And we have a lot of like social listening and like different, all the listening apparatus you set up, or like Google alerts, things like that. Like basically we automate the watching
Mm-hmm.
of competitors for the business. And not because you're trying to copy them, but literally you're trying to understand what are they doing, what are they testing, what's working for them, what's not. And that really can inform you so that you can, if everyone's doing the same thing, it allows you to easily stand out by doing something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So between this married with your voice of customer, like client research doc, you get a really beautiful view of your business, how you do what you do, why it's different and special and amazing for the people that have paid you, and also the ecosystem that you live in, which is sometimes really uncomfortable for folks because
Mm-hmm.
realizing that we live in that ecosystem, it can feel like a whole bunch of competition, but it's really, really important to understand because your clients and your potential clients are looking at all of it, right?
Right.
So we can't ostrich ourselves and not pay attention and then think that we hope to have an ability to market in a way that stands out when we don't even know what we're trying to stand out against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And I think something that really struck me as you were talking is that everything you're looking at are all of the things you're looking at are differentiating components. So things that, you differentiate your brand with, like the quality that you're providing, the cost of what you offer, the type of offer, like all of those things are part of differentiating. Just like you said, you could be a Walmart or you could be a Nordstrom, totally
Right.
different experience for the customer and a totally different price point. So all of those things that you mentioned are all the things that make you unique.
Exactly. And lots of times people just don't even realize that they're sending all of those signals. I have seen a lot of like folks that wanted to be more of the high-end bespoke, like more wide-ranging solution for people in their market and that really didn't have the design to match, right? Like, so their
Mm-hmm.
web design or basically like the entirety of what they were presenting to the world
Uh-huh.
was not that, right? And so that can be super helpful because one thing that people don't realize about design particularly is it's a huge trust indicator. And so people are like, oh, it's kind of a hot mess. It's okay. And it's like, it's only okay to a point because at a certain point, it actually detracts from your authority. And
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you want to position yourself, you do have to be careful in how things are designed and created and all of those things because the higher you get into price points, the more discerning people are. usually the better clients they are too, in
Yeah.
my experience. They're easier to work with, but they are far more discerning. And so there's a lot more that goes into that than someone who has low problem maturity and they're just really beginning to explore solutions with cheaper, products and solutions and digital offers and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So can you give us a perspective on time? Like how much time do we need to set aside for these two activities before we start or incorporate these into our marketing strategy?
Oh, goodness, not long at all. Like usually you can send out a survey and have like within a week get your responses back, do some initial coding of what themes are for each of the particular questions that you ask so that you can get some trends and patterns out of that. And then doing your competitive research, you could probably do that depending on if you get a lot of feedback from your clients around competitors, that's amazing because it's a huge shortcut. Otherwise, you might have to be doing your own research to figure that out, and that can be a little bit tricky. But I would say, like, literally, if you get all the information you need, it takes a couple hours
Mm-hmm.
of like real focused work, like an afternoon. You should be really good with the competitive research. And especially when you're just starting out, right? Like, because you need to get an idea of what's going on and get all that information, but it doesn't need to be like a research thesis for your master's degree, right? Like, it's not that level. So, yeah. It's not long. It's like a couple of weeks, could have that done in addition to all the other stuff that you're doing. And you're really set up beautifully to then take that information and incorporate that into your marketing strategy planning to make sure that it exists there as
Mm-hmm.
it should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and do you have a suggested number of questions that we look at when we are creating that survey on the customer side, as well as like factors we should be looking at? I mean, you gave us many factors to look
Mm-hmm.
at for the competitor analysis, so that's kind of self-explanatory. But
Mm-hmm.
back to that survey of our with our best fit clients,
Mm-hmm.
is there
So
like
here,
a
I have it in front of me. I can share some of the questions for you. So essentially, we have like 8 questions that we ask most of the time. So like before working with you, what were you doing to improve the thing you're trying to improve? So that would be in the brackets for your business, right? Like that's where you're asking what specific courses, trainings, coaching were you accessing, right? And then the next one is when did you realize that you needed something like your product or your
Mhm.
service, right? So what was going on in your world that caused you to start looking for that, right? That can also give some help for SEO keywords. We find a lot of SEO interest there to see what people start Googling about. How did you first find out about the business? Right? Really great to find out what they don't always remember, but lots of times they do. And so then why did you decide to choose this particular business over other options, right? Can you recall anything particular that stood out to you? Right? Just kind of leaving it open to them and they can like whatever pops into their mind, which is usually really helpful because if they remember it, it's usually pretty
Mhm.
impactful. And
Mhm.
then when you signed up for that, what happened to make you feel certain that this was the right choice for you? So we're looking for indicators within the service that really stood out to them. And then now that you've completed whatever that thing is that you completed, what's the number one thing you're able to do now that you weren't before? So we're looking for new capabilities that people have, talking about their outcomes, their future you that we can help other people who have not gone through that transformation know about. And then is there anything that you wish that this particular product or service had that it doesn't today? And that's just a general product research question that I like to throw in there because people have great ideas and it's always really nice to use this opportunity because I don't like bothering my clients or my clients more than we need to, and so it's always nice to do as much as you can at one time. And then depending on the business, we'll add a ninth question, which is, would you be open to having an actual interview? And then we usually tell them who on the team would be doing that just to alleviate some of that unknown. And then
Mhm.
if they do, then we just ask them to leave their email because once again, this would be anonymous. So you get all the good answers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, there's so much here, but so much value. I think that
Mhm.
anybody out there should be able to do these things relatively easily and then have just everything they need to make sure that they're attracting the right people and repelling the wrong people.
Exactly. Like, and it's one of those things, it just becomes, we call it the research repository. You build it up over time, where over time you have like these amazing survey results. You get more and more over time. The questions don't change, right? We're just asking new people as they
Mhm.
come through. And it's the biggest gift for copywriters, messaging, the amount of times that we extract literal sentences or phrases that clients have used for headlines, marketing, social media ads, all the things, because that's why it's called voice of customer, right? If somebody isn't a really experienced copywriter, I think they think that we go off into the woods, right? Come up with these magical ideas. Like 99% of our best ideas come from the people who bought the thing and loved the thing. And so they tell us these wonderful things about the product and what it's done for them and the problems it solved. And we just use their language and then build copy around it. But that's a lot where the main messages come from. So if you're ever working with a copywriter or, any kind of marketing person who's doing your social media, et cetera, especially when you have to farm it out and you're hiring for other people, this is what they want to see. You will make a copywriter's day if you're like, here's my voice of customer doc, ta-da. And it's amazing because they don't usually get that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that from working with a couple of copywriters over the years. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Rita, this has been fabulous. How can the listeners learn more from you, connect with you, maybe even hire you?
So, well, I hang out at ritabarry.co. That's BARRY.co, not the fruit berry, the other kind. And then I also have a marketing quiz at marketingquiz.co. If somebody wants to evaluate their marketing and basically go through a whole lot of really intrusive questions to find out of the 5 different marketing categories around strategy, optimization, messaging, etc., where do they currently fit and where should they focus to improve their business, then they can go there, and that's completely free. Just go in and answer all the questions and it'll tell you where to focus. So those are the 2 best places. I am not a social media person. I'm not on the social media, something wrong, but I have very much in common. I love working with people and solving complex problems, and I do not like having surface level conversations on social media. So my website is the best place. And if you do DM me on Instagram, I will probably once a month, maybe I check in over there. So be patient. But
I love that. We certainly have that in common. So yes. Thank you so much for being here. And listeners, I would love to hear from you. Are you going to do these analyses so that you can take your marketing to the next level and start implementing strategies that truly attract your best fit clients? Thank you all for being here, and I will see you all next week. And that's a wrap, friends. A heartfelt thank you for being here. I know there are many other ways that you could spend your time, so I truly appreciate you joining me. And be sure and visit the website, therobingraham.com/resources for a plethora of resources to help you grow your business for long-term success.